So the Terrans open up the new war in Imperium by, of course, doing nothing. I'm seeing a pattern here. Basically, they produced a couple of missile boats and a scout for next turn, and they're hoping that they'll be able to launch an attack on here. They don't have quite enough forces to overcome what the Imperials have. They began to realize, and of course so did the Imperials, the danger that these guys are in. Their transport ships. The whole Imperial fleet could just slip around and sweep over and attack them. Cause some damage. Transports don't cost much. They cost one each to produce. The same cheap stuff costs that. So it may not be worth it. It may just not be worth attacking that crap. I don't see much advantage to it except the possibility of wiping out any chance of invading the planet. But as things stand, probably better off just defending at this point. The Imperial player made an appeal, and he ended up getting an increase of income. He's now making 14 a turn from the Imperials instead of 10. That's a spiraling effect that if he can get that if he can get that rolling, it's very good, especially given that he's already knocked out one Terran planet. Of course, if the Terrans can get this strike in here, that'll knock. Oh, that's the other thing. The event was Imperial attention, which means all glory gains and losses are doubled. So if this falls, it ends the war right there. Which may not exactly be what the Terrans want to have happen. They don't have an outpost that they built, I don't believe. So they won't be able to conquer it right away. So that may not be their best action. But destroying the fleet there would be nice. So they may just not conquer the planet. And indeed, the Terrans are attacking there. Got the fleets lined up, and we're going to fire them off. Second round of combat. Both sides stayed. The rolls were equal, but the Imperials had less ships, so they get to maintain their long range, which may end up being an advantage to them. They lost a couple of ships, however, and I think the Terrans only lost one. And the Imperials have had enough. They took really heavy losses this round, basically from the missile boats, and they didn't deal any real damage back. They're going to withdraw the light cruiser. Cut their losses. They can't do anything about the fighter. It's going to be stuck there. Well, we'll have a mass attack on that. We'll see if it can take out a missile boat. Imperial second turn, once again they got Imperial attention, and they decided to try to take advantage of it by sweeping into Midway. They also made another appeal. This time it did them no good, so their glory's down to 3, and they got nothing out of it. They obviously defeated the transport fleet that was stationed there and killed one ship, and then they neutralized the outpost, but tried to land troops on it, and it was not sufficient. I don't know if it's still neutralized. It was not sufficient to defeat the outpost. The outpost actually killed their troops. So now they're in a strange position where they have their fleet over here, the Terran fleet's over here, and no real defenses throughout. I'm not sure what's going to happen on the Terran turn. So the Terrans are out of supply back here, and 2 of their ships actually ended up disrupted because of that, one of which couldn't move, so they left the rest of the fleet sitting there. The rest of that fleet has some chance of being disrupted, but they think it's better to protect the heavy ship that's there than to worry about the colonies, the transports. They moved an outpost closer. It doesn't really help much, but it's better than nothing, and got one of their ships back. They're not really able to deal with this fleet. Not sure what to do. This is really a weird game to me. And then in the second half of the turn, the Imperials flew over and destroyed the monitor at Alpha Centauri. They used double missile barrages. They don't have missiles to fire on the planet itself. They couldn't get home. They were too far away, so they're going to risk their own fueling disaster. The problem is, the Terrans looked at, they managed to pull one of their ships back, the sick ship, but not all the way back. And they pulled the rest of their fleet back with it, because they're seeing what the Imperials are getting. A bunch of strike cruisers. And that's a lot of power. And especially after seeing that they've already lost one of their monitors, they really have to worry. On the Imperial side of the turn, they brought a large fleet up to Barnard's Star, basically gathering what they had back here, minus the transports, which they were able to send around to bring extra forces up, and that includes a couple of disrupted ships, as well as their new builds, or replacements, or whatever, which they think is going to be sufficient to defeat what looks like a fairly large Terran fleet, but most of its transports. The only decent ships disrupted, so they should be able to chase them off there. They also put a build of a large pile, some bombardment capability, but mainly ground capability, fighters for the mothership to use. So their plan is to launch the attack and try to take Alpha Centauri. One of their ships is stuck there, was unable to jump out. Alright, let's see how this battle runs. So the Imperials complete their turn. They destroyed Barnard's Star and the outpost there, and moved the ship that was left behind at Centauri back up here, and moved most of the rest of their fleet in pursuit, and got a ship here so that there was no chance of escape. And they not only wiped out the fleet, but they also wiped out Agita, the outpost. That's given them 2 glories, so they're back up at even. And they lost a combat unit in all that fighting at Agita, but otherwise not a lot of losses. Their fleet may have trouble being in supply, but right now they've got a heavy edge, and they've got a good sized fleet coming in to continue the attack. They're hoping to take a planet or something. We'll see. I'm beginning to get an idea of how to do this, but it's tough. The Terrans paid a high cost on their turn. They attacked at Barnard's Star again, and they were facing a weakened Imperial strike cruiser. The strike cruiser did a heavy missile attack on a heavy Terran cruiser and destroyed it without getting destroyed in return. I think an Imperial transport got destroyed by a bunch of missile ships. The Imperials then pulled out because they were out of missiles and didn't want to fight. Now, they got lucky pulling out. They had to make a roll because it's an out-of-supply ship. And then the Terrans pulled back as their second turn. Actually, the Imperials probably want to pull back to refuel. Most of this fleet on their turn, and we'll see if they can get either of these back. Alright, a successful Imperial attack on Alpha Centauri, and this time they brought along an outpost, so they actually get to keep it during the peace. That will raise the glory high enough that this war is over, and the Imperials have won the second of the Soleimani Rim Wars. Or at least so I like to say. This game is actually less well tied to the Traveler universe, even if it feels very similar. So what I think is happening is that this was actually developed alongside Traveler, given the time, etc. And it doesn't quite mesh as well as Fifth Frontier War does with, especially some of the later stuff. But the basic concept of jumps taking a month each for each leg of them, and the idea of these lines being the only way to travel. This is a little different from Traveler. In Traveler and Fifth Frontier War, you can jump wherever you like within your jump range. Those lines just indicate really commercial routes. So you could probably tweak this and make it more in line with Traveler if you wished. I think it's a very interesting game as it is, though, and I'm not as sure that... I think it's actually more interesting than Fifth Frontier War. So here we are at the end of the peace phase. There were only 2 turns for this piece, which means neither of the 2 planets... Well, this one didn't convert to an Imperial world, and this one remains disordered. We're down to really Sol itself, and these are all just outposts. They're almost unimportant at this point. The Imperials were able to build a fairly decent-sized force and have a fairly decent-sized force. The Terrans built a lot of monitors, planning on trying to defend Sol. We're going to see whether or not the Imperials can end things here. I don't know which way it's going to go. It does definitely feel like the Earth is under siege at this point, though. Alright, I'm going to zip this one up and send it up to you, and then I'll set up for the next war, and we'll start the next one.